Aloha and welcome. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about the finally construct. So up until now, we've been talking about try and accept and what that does. Well, after you've done that, sometimes we need to handle what we call cleanup. And it's necessary. Let's say you've got files that are open. Maybe you're in the process of writing a file and you hit an error and you need to do something. In your business logic, you can decide that you should close it. Maybe you should delete the file, something like that. Whatever it is you need to do that after you've identified it and you've handled your error. So you go into what we call a finally block. So let me share my screen and I'll show you an example of that. So it's actually the example from the book, and we're going to play around with that in a couple of different ways. So in here, what it's doing is it's saying nums is this empty list, read nums is -1. Then we're going to ask for a file name. And then we're going to try opening the file name. And then we're going to say the read numbers is going to be open to my file R. Don't worry what this means. This is simply just opening up the file name. And then we're going to say for line in that. So what we're doing here is we're reading the file into a variable here, and then we're going to go through it line by line. So just think of it as that way. And then nums is going to be, it's going to append int of line to it. So it's going to take each line of it. It's going to try to convert that to a number and then put that into the list here. So obviously it's expecting that we're opening a file that has numbers in it. Don't worry about all the, all the stuff up here. We're going to be covering this in later chapter, but just know that that's the gist of what's going on here. So we're talking about our possible errors here. One is that we could have an IO error. So that would happen up here when we're trying to open it. Let's say it doesn't have the right file name or something, and it's going to flag an IO and say could not open it or could not find the file name. It could have a value number, and that's going to, our value error, and that's going to be over here. If we have text in it, then it's going to, flag a value error. So that's going to happen over here. Well, then we're going to have the finally, and in finally, what we're going to say is we're going to say closing my file. So finally happens regardless of what goes on here. So I'll show you two different versions of this. First, we're going to do it this way, and we will run. And I'm going to give it a valid, or actually, let's give it an invalid name. Let's just put like JH. So now it's going to say opening JH over here. And then it's going to come over here. It's going to hit an error. It can't open it, can't find it. So it raises an error, and that is an IO error. So then it goes down here to IO error, and it says could not find, and it says JH. So right here, could not find JH. So after it does that, it's finished the exception. Then it goes down to finally, and it handles the finally stuff. So in the finally, it says closing JH. Then it says the read numbers, if it's not -1, then it's going to close it. So it's going to check and see if the red numbers is not equal number to 1, then the red numbers dot close. So it's going to do that. Then it's going to say the numbers found, and it's going to print that out, and then it's going to exit. So this is an elegant way of cleaning everything up after it hits an error like that. So let's say we give it a proper name for a file. So we're going to run it again, and I'm going to give it the name of the file that we're looking at here. And obviously this file does not have numbers in it, so it should hit the next error, which is might cause value error. So we're going to do this, and sure enough, it reads the file. So it goes down here, it says opening the file name, then it says could not read the number. So it gets down here, it hits this, raises an error, comes down, and the next thing you see is could not read from this. And then it goes down, it runs the finally block, it says closing file name, and then it says numbers found, and it's got nothing there. So because we didn't find any integers in that, or any numbers in that, in this code, or in the file that we have here. So let's see what would happen if we have this thing successfully execute. What happens then, do you think? Well, let's take this out, and go ahead and put in, run it again. And we're going to put in our file name. We're going to run that. So here we go. Let's take a look. We say opening. We certainly have, or enter file name, then we say opening, and it opens it up. And then after it opens it up, it does the read nums open my file. It doesn't hit the IO error, so it finishes the try block. So then after it does the try block, it comes down and it runs the finally as well. So then you see closing file name, and then it goes through here, it closes it, and then it says numbers found, and it lists it, and it didn't find any, so it's going to be blank here. So even a successful run with a try, if your try runs successfully, it still goes down to finally and does all this cleanup. And this is really where we do cleanup stuff, things that happen at the end of it. You're closing your files, handling whatever you need to. And it's just what's going to happen in general when you finish successfully or with an error when you're doing this. So this is how you use the finally construct. And it's very convenient. And again, it's used for cleanup at the end of running things. So let that sink in, try it a couple of times, try it with different types of errors, watch the flow like we did here, or we did a try to see if, what would happen on a successful. It would go through the block and then hit the finally, or for different types of errors as you go, what happens, you'll see that, you hit the error, you go, and then you've run the finally code. So, yeah, so that is this lesson. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out an email, set up a Zoom session. We can talk about it more. If not, I will see you in the next lesson. Aloha.